From a warehouse owned by 3 different competing drug cartels, this is Kurt Berglund on the run for his life. On my YouTube channel today, thank you for joining me. Please click like and subscribe. What I'm going to do today is to try and walk you through a game called Baseball Classics, a game that I purchased about 3 years ago, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I bought and about gameplay today, and then next week I'm going to show you some actual games, and we're going to do some on my channel, and you'll get a sense of what gameplay looks like for that game. Got a lot of questions about it on my channel, and I want to try and address those this morning in just a few minutes to give you an idea of what the game is like and how it flows. First thing to know about Baseball Classics is that it is a 3-level game. You can play basic, intermediate, or advanced, and like I do with most games I play, I sort of pick and choose between each of those for what I think is the best game experience, and you'll probably, if you choose to purchase Baseball Classics, end up doing that as well. When I bought Baseball Classics, I've bought a few sets, not seasons, but a few sets, and I'll talk more about what those are, and individual teams. There are 2 levels of gameplay for the cards on Baseball Classics. One is standard, which is no splits. In other words, it's similar to Strat-O-Matic Basic or APBA Basic, where there's no splits versus lefties and righties. The second level is called Premium, and Premium has splits as well as the basic part of the card, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a few minutes. When I purchased the game, I did not buy all the bells and whistles. I just downloaded the PDF for the rules, and I'll show you what that looks like. And I put those in protective plastic sheets and made a binder and called it a day. Then I made one additional change to that to try and ease my gameplay, and I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes as well. But I did not order all the rules from the game company. I just downloaded the PDF, and that was free. Alright, so let's get started. First of all, with the basic level of gameplay. I'm going to move the camera. I hope you don't get too nauseous. This is an idea of what one of the charts looks like for Baseball Classics. Basically what happens here is if you get an out reading, for the most part it tells you what it is that happens, and the defensive manager has some options as well that you can see on these pages, and we don't really need to go into them, I guess, but except for you to know that they're there as far as ground outs, fly outs, and the rest. What happens on double plays and so forth. So the basic level of gameplay walks you through that. Let's look at what the cards look like. I'm going to prop this up, and I hope this works as something that you can see well. Let's see if this does it here. We'll start with the basic. Well, I'll turn it. How about that? I'll turn it, and we'll see if that works when we broadcast this thing. So what I have here is the standard cards. We have Bill Buckner and Frank Viola, the 86 Red Sox and the 87 Twins, facing off against each other. As you can see from the cards, what we have is a 50-50 system. So you're rolling 4 dice with Baseball Classics, and if you look up above, you'll see what the 4 dice look like. These are ones that I bought at a local game store. You need 3 D6s, which are the brown dice, and then the top die is a binary die, which is a 0 or 1 die reading. Basically, the instructions tell you that if it's a 0, think of it as being the pitch on the pitcher's card. If it's a 1, it's on the batter's card. So imagine that I rolled the dice and we're going to do our first batter, and it's going to be Bill Buckner against Frank Viola. So I rolled a 0, which means it's on Viola's card, and a 13. So I add those numbers together. 6, 6, and 1 makes 13. And I'm going to zoom in on Viola's card here so that you get a better look of what a card looks like. So we're on the standard card for the basic, if you want to call it that, the basic Baseball Classics game. We've rolled a 0-13, which means a 0 again is on the pitcher's card. The 13, we have 3 D6s, so you can get a number anywhere between 3 and 18 for that reading. Obviously, bell curve type stuff with dice, your probabilities are highest in the middle. So your 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s in there are most likely to come up. Your 3s and your 18s are least likely to come up. So if we look at the die roll here, if Buckner was up against Frank Viola, it would be a 0-13 roll, and that would mean that Buckner struck out. If you look at the player card, you know that, or you can tell that if it's a red reading, that's to indicate that it's an out. So if you look at 6, 7, 9, 10, and 11, and 14, those are outs. If you look at the blue readings, those are strikeouts. So 8 and 13 are strikeouts. Walks are in yellow, and hits are in light green. And I'll go into more detail about what the parentheses and asterisks that you see there mean in a few minutes. Frank Viola is a left-handed pitcher, as you probably remember if you're watching this. And if you look at where it says throws near the top of the card, and it's red and the left side of the circle next to the word throws, that tells you that he's a left-handed pitcher. The starter pitcher tells you whether he's a starter or a reliever, and the blue triangle tells you how good his fielding was, and that means that Viola is a blue-rated fielder, which means he's slightly below average. All of the stats that Baseball Classics thinks you need to know are on the right column next to the result outcomes. Now, we can look at Buckner's card and get the same information for a batter. What you'll see there is the 3 through 18 die roll readings, all of his stats in the right column. His position near the upper right corner of the card is first base with a yellow reading. That means he's slightly above average in fielding. And he's rated for everything from bunting to stealing to a run rating, which you can't see because it's below the rubber band that I'm using to make sure Buckner doesn't slide down the page. You also see that he bats left because the circle next to the word bats near the upper left corner tells you that because that's filled in to the left, it tells you he's a left-handed batter. All of his 1986 statistics are listed for you there. So if we would change the outcome for this die roll from a 0 on this die to a 1, which I will do right there, and suppose that we get a 1-13. That tells you, the 1 tells you it's on the batter's card. On the instructions, they say just imagine that it's like a bat, and so that tells you that it's on the batter's card, the 1 being like a bat. If we look back at Buckner's card, the 13 is a ground out. So we have a 1-13 as a ground out on Buckner's card. That's what the basics look like for the standard game on Baseball Classics. Now let's look at the cards for a premium game. And so I have 2 of those down below here. They are the same Frank Viola card because I want to make a point about that versus the 1974 Reggie Jackson card. And I left the rubber bands on intentionally to try to give you an idea of what these cards look like in a way that they don't slide down the page and make filming this even more difficult than it already is. So, if we look at Frank Viola's pitching card, again, 1987 Twins, you'll see in the left part of the card that we have split ratings versus left-handed batters and versus right-handed batters. The very same 3 through 18 3D6 die roll that you see versus lefties and versus righties. That will change for that. So, this is what they call a premium card looks like. If you look down the right column, the far right column, it says versus both. That tells you that if you buy the premium cards for Baseball Classics, you get the standard card as well. So if we take a look, you can very easily see that if you look under versus both on the premium card, it has triple in parentheses. If you look above for the standard card, it has for a die roll of 3, a triple in parentheses. And if you look on down the line, you can see that all of the readings, all of the outcomes are the same. And I'm doing that to prove to you that both of the premium and the standard outcomes are on the premium card. So you don't have to buy 2 sets of cards if you don't want to. So let's look at some outcomes for these two gentlemen if we're focusing on Reggie and Frank Viola. So suppose that we go back above and I change the outcome. Suppose that I rolled a 0-13 and we're looking at Frank Viola's card. Suppose that he's facing 1974 Reggie Jackson. Well, Reggie Jackson was a left-handed batter. So we would look, if we were playing the premium game, we would look at the left column and we would look down to number 13 versus lefties. That would be FO, which is a flyout, and that would mean that Reggie was out. Okay, and that's very simple. Oh, and there's one other thing I should show you about Viola's card, which I hope doesn't screw up my whole thing here, but it also gives you on the premium card a batting card for the number of the batting card to use if Viola is going to be a batter. Everything else is the same above the readings. He's still a left-handed batter, he still throws left, and he's still a below-average defensive starting pitcher. Okay, now let's go above, and if we change the 0 here to a 1, that means that, and we're playing the premium game, that would mean that Reggie was at bat. And the card reading would be taken because we rolled a 1 with the 13 on the D6s. That would mean that we would look at the 13 number on Reggie's card. So if we just look down and we see that Frank Viola was a left-handed pitcher, Reggie's facing a left-handed pitcher, and so that would be in the left column. And go down to 13, it's blue, and you say, well, what's blue? Well, remember, these are all color-coded, so if something's red, it's some kind of a hit out. If it's light green, it's a hit. If it's yellow, it's a walk, and if it's blue, it's a strikeout. And so they don't have room to write the word strikeout in there, so they just let the blue symbol tell you that if you roll a 13 on Reggie's card against Frank Viola, a left-handed pitcher, Reggie strikes out. So these are the basics of what this looks like for Baseball Classics. You have the standard game above with those cards and the premium game below. Alright, so that's what that looks like. Now, if you want to get more into the gameplay itself and what that looks like and the roles and so on and what happens after the outcome is determined on the card, I will do that in a subsequent video. But this video is just to get you sort of introduced to Baseball Classics and how gameplay works. Again, if you have questions, please ask them in the comments below the video. I hope that this has been helpful. There is a second video to come that will break down gameplay for you coming very, very shortly. Thank you again. I hope you have a great day, and please click like and subscribe to my channel. So long, everybody.